Hey everyone, this is Arnold Viersen, Member of Parliament for Peace River Westlock. I'm so happy to be having this Facebook Live today about how truckers are joining in the fight against human trafficking. I'm really excited about the important guests that we have on this evening, and I'm hoping that all of you will be definitely inspired by the actions of these individuals. My name's Arnold Viersen. Like I said, I'm the Member of Parliament for Peace River Westlock, a big riding in northern Alberta. For those of you that are tuning in from other parts of the country, the riding is, if you chop Alberta in half, top to bottom, the top half of Alberta starts just north of Edmonton, actually. Most people think central Alberta is Red Deer, but actually the center of Alberta is north of Edmonton. And from there, there's 3 federal ridings, Fort McMurray being basically one of them on the one side, Grand Prairie, the one on the other side, and then a big chunk in the middle. It's called Peace River Westlock. That's the riding I get the privilege of representing. Forestry, farming, and fracking is what we do, and big trucks are in not short supply in northern Alberta, as all of the products that you use typically start out in northern Alberta, whether it's the grain, the oil, or the lumber. Big trucks are used to haul those things around, and so they're an important part of our Canadian landscape, so to speak. I have been the co-chair of the all-party group to end human trafficking and modern-day slavery since 2017, and taking the fight to human trafficking has been probably the single issue that I've focused on the most in Parliament since being elected, and so it's always excited to be joined by fellow warriors in that fight, as we are tonight. We've been working on a number of pieces of legislation, supply chain reporting, spearheaded by Senator Maville Deschênes in the Senate, and now Marcus Pulowski, a Liberal MP from Thunder Bay, has introduced the same bill in the House of Commons with the support of the all-party group, and so we're really excited about that. But tonight we're going to hear from a couple of folks about how the fight against human trafficking is happening in Ontario. I know that the Ontario government has put forward a $300 million initiative to fight human trafficking, and all kinds of organizations are stepping up to do their part as well. And so tonight I'm joined by Shelley and Sarah to have just a bit of a discussion about what they're doing, who they are, and how they're joining in the fight against human trafficking. So I'm going to throw it over to Shelley Walker from the Women's Trucking Federation of Canada. Introduce herself and to tell us a little bit about what her organization does, what it is, and how they're joining in the fight against human trafficking. So Shelley, please introduce yourself.
I'm Shelley Walker. I'm the CEO of the Women's Trucking Federation of Canada, and I've been a professional driver in transportation for over 30 years. The Women's Trucking Federation of Canada is all about empowerment, networking, encouragement, as well as safety issues. We're basically for the grassroots of the industry. Our slogan is in the office, under the hood, or behind the wheel. We're all pieces of the puzzle.
All right, and we're also joined by Sarah from the Ontario Association of Crime Stoppers. Sarah, you want to just give a brief introduction?
Certainly. My name is Sarah Bowers-Peter. I'm the program coordinator for my local program, Crime Stoppers Guelph Wellington, and I am a board member on the Ontario Association of Crime Stoppers. If you're not familiar with our organization, we are an anonymous and confidential method of reporting crime. And for those who provide information that leads to an arrest, you may be eligible for a cash reward.
Super duper. Yeah, here in Northern Alberta, Crime Stoppers is operating well as well. I know that most of my constituents will be well familiar with Crime Stoppers and the good work that they do. So, well, thank you both for joining me tonight. Human trafficking, most folks think that, oh, human trafficking, that's like something that happens in other countries far away from here. And my line I always say is that human trafficking is large and growing right here in Canada. It's often happening within 10 minutes of where you live. And it involves the recruiting and transporting and transferring or harboring a person or exerting control or influence over them. And so that is the reality. And it happens in every part of the country. So people think, oh, that's only something that happens in Toronto. Well, we've had right up here in Northern Alberta, in Grand Prairie, for example, several cases of human trafficking. High Level, which is one of the most northern communities in Alberta, remote community. We've had a trafficking case coming out of there. Shelley, you want to just give a little bit of how you came into the fight against human trafficking and maybe some examples from your area?
Well, as a driver, I often seen what a truck driver refers to either as usually a lot lizard or a lady of the night, quite often in truck stops and rest areas. And it always baffled me as a female driver that it just seemed like they were looking younger and younger all the time. That's when I first learned about Truckers Against Trafficking down in the US and some of the stuff they were doing. I started researching more of it up here in Canada because I wanted to know, isn't it a Canada thing? Do we have that up here? And as I was researching and finding more and more, I was pretty disgusted, to tell you the truth, and wanted to know what I could do about it. I did some outreaching. I attended a few sessions on human trafficking. I connected with MP Natalia Kusudova, and she was doing some work on trafficking. I attended roundtable discussions that she was holding. In fact, several of my board did. And I had made the suggestion at a few meetings about a rolling billboard and how I thought that that would be a benefit, right? Everybody thought I was crazy. And finally, after some thought-provoking conversations with myself, I decided I'm going to do this. And even though nobody supports it, I'm just going to do it. I invested my own money to do the first trailer. And that trailer's been a hit. It has been seen, there's been pictures of it taken in BC, in Alberta, Montana. Of course, some of my fellow drivers that I work with will say to me, and I got pulled into the scale in Wisconsin. Oh, why? They wanted a picture of the trailer. So it's a blessing and a curse, according to the guys that I work with, but they love it. Nobody refuses to haul that trailer. In fact, they're asking when we're going to do some more. So I think the billboards is a big thing. And that's just kind of gotten me more involved in the public awareness piece. Because as we've traveled with the trailer in various locations, I found there's just so many people that are totally oblivious to human trafficking. It doesn't happen here in Canada. That's what I hear from everyone. And when you start telling them bits and pieces about trafficking and you pique their interest and they do some research, I've heard back from them saying, I'm shocked. Like, I didn't know this was happening here. So I think, awareness is really key. We're starting within the province of Ontario, but we want to take this trailer initiative Canada-wide. So I'm in talks with a few in Alberta and a few out in the Atlantic provinces, because I think the more of these trailers we get out there, the more awareness we're going to bring.
Oh, I love that. That's precisely the message I've been sending for several years now. Is that wherever you are, you can take the fight to human trafficking in whatever you're doing, and this is a great example of how you're using the world that to bring the fight to human trafficking. So yeah, that's great, Shelley. Sarah, do you got maybe a bit of a story of how you came to the fight against human trafficking and what does it look like necessarily, or is there any cases that you can tell us about in your neck of the woods?
Certainly. So I became aware of human trafficking back in 2017 when our local victim services organization held a community call out and asked everyone from like policing and health and community organizations to come together and help take action against this crime. And the irony is, going into this seminar knowing nothing about human trafficking, I came out after the second day so angry and frustrated with what I learned about this horrific crime that I knew that we could do something with Crime Stoppers, the organization that I work with, and not just talk about reporting crime, but also educate and use our platform for reporting crime to help stop human trafficking. So when it comes to the work that we do here in Guelph Wellington, we offer education and training to kids and parents about what human trafficking looks like. And it starts with cyber safety. What are the grooming techniques? How are they reaching our kids? And right through to parents who don't know what to look for and what the signs of the grooming in their children that they may be overlooking. So that is something that we felt passionately about. And each Crime Stoppers program has the same premise of reporting and resolving crime And you can reach out to your local program and find out if they have a human trafficking component as well, because you might be able to engage with them and learn more. However, we don't believe in being a bunch of silos. We felt that if you know, what Shelley had going with Tamia was such an amazing program, and I certainly learned at the feet of Tamia about this crime, that we could certainly throw our support behind the No Human Trafficking Initiative, and knowing that education is key to prevention. And that saying is, you know, don't just pull people out of the river, go upstream and find why they're falling in. And that's really what we need to do, is prevent this crime, as well as, you know, resolving the cases that are already happening.
100%, 100%. So for the viewers back home that are watching this, Tamea, who got mentioned, is Tamea Nagy, and she's one of the, just Google her, she's one of the leading anti-human trafficking advocates in the country. She's a very small package that's is very feisty, of Hungarian descent. I think she was trafficked here from Hungary originally, and so she is quite the story. Just Google it, Tamea Nagy, and you'll get to read all about her work here in Canada. Yeah, just a couple of the stats that I know of is like 95% of the human trafficking cases are of Canadian born people. They're not. This isn't something that comes across the border. It's something that happens within our own country. 85% of them are women and girls, and 50% of them are Indigenous. And so this is a Canadian-born problem, and demands Canadian solutions. And so those are some of the real challenges of this. And one of the other interesting things. So this is probably more particular to your region and where this 401 corridor. Shelley, I wonder if you just tell us a little bit about that and the impacts of the 401 corridor and human trafficking.
Yeah, actually, the 401 corridor from Windsor right up into Quebec is a major traffic lane for traffickers. You have to remember the number one mode of transportation for them is cars and vehicles. And then next is like airplanes. But their basic mode is by vehicle, because they can take them all over. They can get them to Suriname. They drive day, they drive night. These girls are often, malnourished. They're controlling everything about them. So the more they drive them around, then they lose where they are. And I'm sure, a lot of people have been through Northern Ontario. You can forget where you are pretty quickly, right? So it is one of the major corridors. And then the next corridor is going right out through to your province. And up in Fort McMurray and all that area is a high traffic area. So the biggest haul is in Ontario because that's the largest stretch of the 401. But recent stats that we received is Ontario and Nova Scotia is the next biggest trafficking area of concern.
Sure. Yeah, the human trafficking in Canada mostly takes on the form of sex trafficking, and it's extremely profitable and growing. The stats are it's like anywhere from $200,000 to $300,000 a year per trafficked person in revenue. So you've got a highly motivated. The traffickers are motivated to do this work, I suppose they call it. Yeah, and the other just interesting thing, the connection to Quebec. There seems to be a premium on French-speaking girls. I don't know if they've run across that at all, Sarah, with your organization or not, but
what we're hearing is that younger girls, and we know of instances where children are being groomed as young as 8 years of age, and traffickers will put in the time. They will engage with a young person, and it can take weeks, months, years. If you know that you're talking to an 8-year-old and you know that you have a market for 10-year-olds, you'll put in the time to get her because you know that you will make money off of her. And it's a difficult conversation to have. And I know you've been having this conversation for quite some time. And people are shocked when we tell them things like this, but we're trying to get people past that shock, because we have to be able to talk about human trafficking. Not talking about it is actually allowing it to persist and allowing people to commit the crime and allowing people to buy children and women.
Shelley, I was on your website there, just doing a little research for this phone call there, and I noticed like uh, the fight against human trafficking features extremely prominently. You've put on seminars for truck drivers and trucking associate or trucking businesses and things. I particularly like the under the hood, the line. I'm an auto mechanic by trade, and so I've spent my fair share of time under the hood, working on Cummins engines on Dodge pickups. So I'm somewhat connected to that world. How has the reception been to your seminar that you've been putting on, and the work that you've been doing around this?
It's being very well received. At first, when people find out that I'm there to talk about trafficking, they're like, trafficking and trucking, how do the two go together? But usually by the time I'm done, that message is pretty loud and clear. And I find that for a group of executives that I recently spoke to, as soon as I told them that some of the victims are as young as 12 years old, they were flabbergasted, right? Because they figure it's an older person thing, it's an adult thing. Some of them were of the mindset that, well, these are young ladies that, they run away from home and they got involved in drugs. When you bring them a survivor, and that survivor gets up there and tells their story, you could hear pin drop in the room. I'm sure we've all been to meetings and events, and you constantly see people, they're on their phones, they're fidgeting because they're getting bored. The last survivor that we had in speaking, I mean, nobody touched their phone. They fully listened to what she had to say. And I bumped into one of the gentlemen out in the hallway when we were on break, and he said, I have to go outside for a walk. He said, because I'm just so angry. And I said, what are you angry about? He says, everything that she went through. He says, as a father, he said, it angers me. Right. So survivors are the key to the solution. Survivor-led training is the key to the solution. Bringing more and more survivors in, as painful as it is for them to tell their stories, they want to because they want to stop it from happening to somebody else. And businesses, corporations, government, we need to start listening to them more and helping them in any way that we can.
For sure. The others seeing this advocacy that you've been doing, I noticed that the Ministry of Children and Women's Issues just gave you kudos. It's vital to see the Trucking Association help in combating human trafficking. It's great to see that. I'm wondering if you can just respond to the accolades you're getting from the ministry there.
We were really excited when we seen that from the ministry. It's nice to know that our work is making a difference and it's being seen. We are coming out with trailer number 4, which will come out at Truck World in April, which we're very, very excited for. And this will be an industry association trailer. So we have trucking, the Ontario Trucking Association, the Private Motor Truck Council of Canada. We have the Truck Training Schools Association of Ontario and the Trucking Human Resources Sector Council Atlantic so far, that are all putting in to do this trailer, so that afterwards it'll go all over as a show of unity that our industry is committed to doing what we need to do to help spread the message to end human trafficking.
Right. And Sarah, that your association has been like partnered with this as well. Like I think, is that correct, Shelley? In the background, is that the decal on that's what the trailer looks like, right, on the side of it?
Yes, that's one of 2 designs, and it's a brand new design that will be coming out next month.
Okay, and the Crime Stoppers logo I see is prominently featured there as well. So that's great. Sarah, you got any comments about that?
Well, we're just delighted to be part of this. I've actually taken the training. We were so excited, and Shelley said you have to check it out. So I was pleased to go through the training, and the content is so easy to understand yet so impactful. It answers a lot of questions that people have. So when we got to the end of it, I said to Shelley, we're going to stir up a lot of feelings and a lot of people are going to now know what they're seeing when they see it. I think we need to introduce the Crime Stoppers component to give them that reminder. For people who aren't comfortable dealing directly with the police, you can contact Crime Stoppers. The Ontario Association of Crime Stoppers was keen to be a part of this because, as I mentioned, crime reporting and resolution and crime trends and all of that stuff is our wheelhouse. And knowing Ontario is a hub for human trafficking, and you talk about the 400 series highways. That's something that we know is happening here in our province. So it just makes sense for the provincial association to get on board. And if we put our branding out there, we can direct people to our website or remind them that they have their own local Crime Stoppers program, as you mentioned, and put that seed in there that, if you see something happening, you can report it, whether again, it's to police or anonymously and confidentially to Crime Stoppers. So the reporting and resolution is important once we've taught people what to look for. So we want to make sure we're giving them the information on how to report it.
Mm-hmm. Shelley, you just told us about the fella who took the training and was very angry. You have any other stories of how the training has impacted people and inspired them to action?
We've had a few drivers that have reached out to us. Because that training, it's made them reach out for other training, other resources. There is a driver that I was speaking to that is from Alberta, and he took our training and he said, who's out in my area? Who do I contact out here? I want to know more. So I guided him to the Not in My City
Perfect, yeah.
website and their information. And so that's a great place for you to start. So I don't know what they have for you to do, but reach out to them and see what you can do in that area. I think the big thing we need to keep in our minds here is that one group is not going to solve this issue. It's going to take many, many organizations and working together to spread this message, to spread awareness. And each of us has our own specialty. I'm not a survivor of human trafficking. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a counselor. I know nothing about that. That's not my wheelhouse. My wheelhouse is transportation. So if I can use this billboard to spread a message and send people to the right resources, that's what we're about, right? I wouldn't dare get up here and try to speak like Timmy does because Lord knows I would not be able to do it, right?
Yeah.
So you bring an expert in when you need the experts, right?
Yeah. Thanks for mentioning Not in My City. That's been a great initiative here in Calgary, and they've got actually folks that take their training. They give you a big sticker. It's a yellow rose and it says Not in My City above it. And several of the truck drivers that are associated with them, they stick the big sticker on the side of their truck, Not in My City. So maybe you'll have to partner with them for those stickers for your folks that take your training.
Yeah, we have, I can tell you, I've taken 2 of their courses.
Yeah.
Right on. I love it. I love the information on their site. So they're one of my favorite go-tos, and that's who I direct people to from out in Alberta. So I mean, it's getting to find out where everybody is and working together. You'll notice that our DECOL carries the Canadian Centre to End Human Trafficking. That's their toll-free number. So we want to make sure that we're also helping victims and survivors with the right information to go to, right? Where to go to get the help that they need.
Yeah, Sarah, you've taken the training as well. Do you have a story of some of the impacts that you've seen?
I have taken the training that Shelley has offered. I've also done previous training. I think we all come out of training in the same mindset that we're disgusted and we want to take action immediately, if not sooner. And that's such a unifying feeling to know that there are other people out there that want to make a difference. And the connections, Shelley's just one example. You start making these connections, you pool your energy, you spread the message, and we're making a difference. When I started my local program talking about human trafficking in 2017, I was called out. We actually did a launch in a local mall because that's where a lot of traffickers will meet up with their victims. So we thought this makes sense. We'll do it at the mall. And I had people coming up to me saying some really not very nice things to me about me because I wanted to talk about human trafficking or I want to create awareness. And, at the beginning, I can tell you, we didn't get many tips about human trafficking. As time has gone by and people understand what they need to look for human trafficking, we get tips regularly. People see it, people know it. I'm invited to talk in my regular monthly chats with our media partners. What's the new development on human trafficking? Whereas at the beginning, it was kind of like, we're not going to talk about that, are we? Like, that's kind of, distasteful. Well, we cannot talk about it. We don't have to talk about it. And when it happens to your child or your partner or someone you care about, and you realize that this is something that has an element of prevention, and if you had just known what you were looking at, sorry, I said partner, I meant sibling, then you would be frustrated because you could have had the tools, you could have had the knowledge and the understanding, and you could have done something about it. But because you felt it was inappropriate, now you've got someone whose life has been completely impacted by this horrible crime. It seems like a no-brainer to me that we need to have more open conversations about human trafficking. So I'm afraid to answer your question. I've done presentations where I talk about human trafficking, and most times now when I am in person, I have someone come up to me and share either they know someone who's been trafficked or being trafficked, or someone that they care about has gotten out of a situation. I had a grandmother come up to me in tears after one presentation, and I was very concerned about her well-being. And she said that her granddaughter was in intensive care because she had been physically assaulted because she was trying to get out of her situation, and her trafficker was not going to let it happen. So she was basically she had life-altering injuries as a result of trying to exit human trafficking.
Yeah, that's been my experience as well, is that everywhere you go, somebody has a story. There's no doubt about that. If you could tell Canadians like one thing about human trafficking, the thing that you think is missing, Sarah, what would that be? Do you have what do you wish Canadians knew about human trafficking that they often don't?
I think I will share a question that was asked of me recently about a parent asking about their child. We did a presentation, and the parent said, how do I know if my child is being groomed? And my response is, assume that they already are, which horrified the audience. Again, apparently this has tremendous shock value for people who aren't as living it as we are on a day-to-day basis. And I said, if they have access to social media, then, and if that social media platform has a direct messaging component, so there's the public facing, I know we're on Facebook tonight, but there's also that direct messaging component. Any platform that allows for direct messaging is a platform that can be used for human trafficking. I then followed up with that parent about a month later. She came to a subsequent presentation. She told me she asked her child if she'd received any inappropriate images or had been asked for inappropriate images in the direct messaging. And she said her child, who was 9 years of age, had on 5 different occasions been either solicited or had been offered up in intimate images. So if there's anything I could say, it would be parents need to understand that this is happening whether you want to talk about it or not. And there are steps that we can take as parents. And it's not just about providing food and shelter and love. It's also about protecting our kids from the unknown on the internet.
Mm-hmm. Shelley, same question to you. If there was like one thing you wish Canadians understood better about human trafficking, what would that be?
I think the one thing that shocked me was being at a seminar and listening to a gentleman tell me about his young daughter being trafficked, and it was his brother-in-law. People don't seem to realize that most of the times it's a family member or a close friend.
Someone they know.
Someone they know. It's someone they know. So, we need to keep that in mind as a country, as society. We need to be wary of that.
Well, Shelley, you've really grabbed a hold of this issue and turned the focus of your organization onto it. There are thousands of associations that do good work in their particular industry. What kind of advice would you have to other like industry associations and how they can add their voice to the fight against human trafficking?
Any organization, any large corporation has the tools to help fight human trafficking. bring in some speakers, invite your employees' spouses to come in and listen, you know, reach out. There is an organization somewhere local to you that has people that will come out and talk to you about human trafficking and what it entails. You have the money to afford those speakers, right? And you're helping a survivor live. So that's the best way you can do something. You know, we are, you know, Canada gives a lot of money to different charities. We're very, you know, we love to do that. That's what we do. That's what part of being Canadian is. But we need to change that focus and start giving some to local charities. And I also think that on a government level, we need across the provinces, we need to start teaching our kids about this in school. They need to know what people are going after them for. Because sometimes kids don't know. Single family homes, low income homes, maybe these kids are seeing it at friends, maybe they have a Facebook or an Instagram or TikTok that they're using there, not at home. Mom and dad don't know. So we need to start teaching them in school because that's the only way we're going to prevent this.
Sarah, I was wondering if you just like, from your experience, what are some of the signs human trafficking might be happening? Like if you see something, say something, that's great, but you need to know what are you looking for? I wonder if you can just give us a little bit of a rundown on perhaps some of the things that you get reported to you perhaps, or that kind of thing.
Well, what we often tell people when we're doing our human trafficking presentations is that a trafficker is going to look for someone who has vulnerability. And that vulnerability can look like a great many things. It can be something as simple as grief, someone who's grieving, or it can be something as complex as a mental health or an addiction or being in a volatile family dynamic. So the changes for someone noticing in a child, so if I'm a teacher or if I'm a coach or a mentor or a parent or a guardian, I could notice things like suddenly my child is not hanging out with the same group of friends. They've distanced themselves from their normal group of friends. Maybe there's new people that they talk about, or they really don't talk about anybody very often because this new group that they're affiliated with doesn't want to be known. Certainly not the type of people they're going to come home and hang out in your basement with mom and dad type thing. Then it will evolve and the trafficker is going to try and create a divide, so alienate them from their families and their support systems. So it's really important to understand that, you know, and it's hard because, you know, at this age, you know, teenagers, young people, they are exerting some independence, but that's where you have to know your child and see what's different about them in particular. We've got situations where people will, you know, change their dress and their mannerisms. And if they don't normally wear makeup, maybe they're wearing a lot more makeup. I do a presentation for students in schools, and our local school board asked me to include in the presentation the fact that they can track young people in the school based on their attendance record. They know that if you are not in school on Fridays and Mondays, you're probably being trafficked because your trafficker is working you all weekend. And then you can still be trafficked and live at home. You know, as was mentioned earlier, we know of situations where family members are trafficking children. You know, it's painful, but it's true. So as far as what are the signs, any drastic change of behavior, if you've got a young person that would not normally talk about things like pornography or the sex industry, and suddenly they seem to be very knowledgeable. If they feel, on another level, if they feel uncomfortable around certain people, if there's a relative or a family member that they are not comfortable being with, that can be a flag that this person is problematic. So, you know, there's a lot of different flags that you can see coming at you when you have the information, but there's no one way to traffic someone either. There are very many different ways. So it's just a case of constant communication, knowing who they're talking to, letting them know that no matter how horrible something is in their life, they can bring it to you, because that way it leaves the door open for when the time comes that they have to tell you something really big, which could be that they're being groomed or they've shared an intimate image and now they're being extorted for it.
Mm-hmm. Now that we talked a bit, Shelley, did you have something to add to that? Oh yeah, I just seen you take your unmute there. So the reality is that the traffickers are in this for the money. There's $200,000 to $300,000 a year sitting on the table for this. From my perspective, going back to Sarah, what you talked about earlier, trying to prevent people from falling in the stream to begin with. If we're able to get the money out of it, if we're able to like reduce the demand, there would be less trafficking that happened. And so that's one of the focuses that I've worked on as well. And so I'm just wondering if and how your organizations try to work on preventing there being the money in the system to begin with, like the folks showing up with the money. I'll go to Shelley first. If you got any comments, does your organization tackle that at all? And is it something that you're looking at doing?
It's not something that we tackle because that is totally out of our wheelhouse, and we leave that to the experts. Basically, we're about just promoting awareness, putting people in touch with the right speakers, and bringing speakers out quite often that are giving the right information. And we have been doing a little bit with the Solicitor General of Ontario and raising concerns about victims and survivors and how their credit is affected and how it scars them for life. And in some cases, some of them that have done short stints in jail. Because now they can't get a job anywhere. They have that criminal record. So that's an area that we've kind of been focusing on and trying to make some change in there.
Sarah?
We don't have, that's not our end of the stick either, frankly, but the one thing I would say is a common theme during our presentations is when people say, well, why didn't she just leave? Which of course goes into the whole psychological and the twisted aspect of how someone, is evolved into the mindset of being a victim of trafficking. And I challenge people to stop asking that question and start asking, why are people buying children and women? Like, let's not put this on the victim, because that's victim shaming. This isn't up to her. She's been brainwashed to get to this point, and she's supposed to wake up one day and have the ability and wherewithal to just walk away. So that's something that we had that conversation to sort of address that. There's always questions about penalties, which I realize, sir, is more your end of the stick when it comes to what legislation is in place. But it's true, when people find out what penalties and under the criminal code, and thankfully now we actually have human trafficking charges that can be laid. But once a person has seen the impacts of this crime, they don't feel it's ever enough. It can range from 2 years to 15 years, and people are like, are you kidding me? You can totally destroy someone's life, and you could get like 5 years, depending on the circumstances. And we could go into the whole aspect of testifying and what a victim has to go through, to actually ensure that a charged individual faces jail time. That whole process is problematic, because you're taking some of the most dark and painful moments of your life and having to share it repeatedly to numerous people, and in a forum, a courtroom where there could be a dozen or more people. I dare say none of us would want to share, some of those intimate moments, even if they were positive ones, never mind a traumatic one where we've been violated and traumatized. So those are the types of things that come to me that are kind of outside the normal reporting, but it's something that bears, further investigation, because if we're going to ask these people to come forward and testify, but we're going to re-victimize them, I would say we may not get that far with human trafficking. It could be one of those crimes that it gets to a certain point and there's an awareness, but people are not held to account because of how that court process impacts the victims.
Well, Shelley, I've got a lot of truck drivers up in northern Alberta. Go to church with a raft of truck drivers. If truck drivers want to get involved in your organization or in the fight against human trafficking, you got any recommendations or tips?
Yeah, they can reach out through our website, which is www.wtfc.ca. And there is a link to the human trafficking website, or you can go to nohumantrafficking.com. On both websites, you will find a link to the survivor-led educational training course. And there's researchers on there. And if you are a company interested in wrapping a trailer, you can reach out to me or Sarah, and we'll hook you up.
Okay. And Sarah, for the rest of us that aren't truckers, you got any recommendations for how to get involved?
Well, I'm going to call out Crime Stoppers. It is a volunteer organization. We are a charitable, not-for-profit entity. So, you know, if you're looking to get involved, if something like human trafficking is something that has motivated you and you want to get involved in combating crime, get involved with your local Crime Stoppers organization. I can tell you the pandemic has been really tough on these charitable organizations. So they're looking for volunteers. If you're looking to financially support, as you mentioned earlier, you know, donating and keeping money local is important to people. You're able to do that, and Crime Stoppers will offer you a tax receipt for your generosity. So there's lots of ways to get involved, spreading the message. And again, I'll reference our social media tonight. That's a great way of promoting a local program and letting people know that you're active and serious about keeping your community safe.
Very good. Well, final question for Shelley. I'm just dying to know, what's your favorite truck? What kind of truck do you drive? What engine's in it? I hear you may even have named your truck. Let's hear some of the details about your fancy truck.
My truck is Miss Destiny Star. She is a 2018 Western Star 5700 XE. I love my truck. She's got a Detroit engine in it. She was specially ordered with the help of a salesman from Western Star, Jeff May. The wrap is all actual women from my organization. It was designed and was sponsored by Corporate Western Star on that truck. So she's actually one of a kind. She's the only one in North America like her. And she lights up all pretty. She's got pink and purple lights all underneath. So when I'm at a truck show, she glows all up nice and pretty.
Oh boy. Oh boy. Well, I'm a bit of a Kenworth guy myself, so I'm gonna have a bit of a rivalry there, I suppose. But the Detroit, I'm cool with that. So very good, very good. Well, I'm Sarah. I'm not sure if you're in on the whole big truck lingo there.
I have a Dodge Ram 2017 with a Hemi. Thank you for asking.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Good old pickup truck. Well, I'm a
It's
Ram
not
guy.
nearly as
So
cool as hers. Not
yeah,
nearly as cool as hers. No.
it's not wrapped and got underglow and things like that.
No, it's wrapped in puzzle pieces. It's actually a pretty
Oh.
cool looking truck, but no fancy wiring. Sorry.
No underglow. Okay.
No.
No chrome and chicken lights.
No.
No. There you go. There. Well, ladies, it's so nice to have you on the podcast this evening, and thank you for all that you do in the fight against human trafficking. I always get to say in Parliament I get to be the pointy end of the stick, but it's always great to look over my shoulder and see that the army is getting bigger all the time, and it's great to see the work that you're doing. So thank you for joining me this evening, and for those folks that are back home, just want to go over a little bit the facts about human trafficking. So human trafficking is happening within 10 minutes of where you live. It's growing and profitable right here in Canada. Most of the victims are from Canada. Over 85% of them are women and girls, and half of them are Indigenous girls. And so this is a Canadian-made problem that needs a Canadian solution. And I hope that each and every one of you will join us in the fight to end human trafficking. Thanks so much for joining us, and look forward to having you on my next Facebook Live.